problem you had. If you got one that's different than this and you're still having trouble after this video, just make sure you can ask a question on MyOpenMath. That way I can look at the specific question you're looking at. But here's an example that it might pull for you. And to start, you want to set up the problem. So I'm going to write this a little differently. So I'm going to say that squared and then squared. And then I'm going to figure out what sine of basically 14x over 2 squared is, which should be just taking away that square root portion of the equation. So cosine of 14x, because it's the half of over 2, but this whole thing really is being squared. Ooh. So we're looking at this squared, which from here is just kind of practice with foiling or factoring, but you're going to multiply. I'm going to split that up into 2 fractions over 2, and I'm going to expand it as well so we can kind of see what's going on. If you want, you can write that as 1/2 14x, or 1/2 of cosine 14x, but this is a little shorter. So from here, first we have 1/2 times 1/2, and then we're going to have 2 sets of 1/2 times negative cosine 14x. So we're going to have minus 2 sets of 1/2 times 1/2 is 1/4 cosine 14x. And then we're going to have negative 14x. Negative times a negative is positive, and it's 1/2 times 1/2, so 1/4 of cosine squared 14x. So this portion is kind of done. This one's, we should multiply that out. So that's 1/4 minus 1/2 of cosine 14x. This portion shouldn't be touched anymore. That 1/4 is going to be messed with a little bit, but we'll get to that in a second. So I'm going to do a little side work for this. That 1/4 shouldn't change at all. So that cosine squared of 14x. So cosine squared of 14x. I'm just going to I'm going to use the half angle formula again on this. So cosine of 28x divided by 2 is the same thing as cosine of 14x. That's being squared. So again, we're going to use the half formula for this. I'm going to write it down here. I'm running out of room, but it is, if it's squared, it's just 1 plus cosine of alpha, which is 28x, all over 2. So now I can rewrite it as 1 plus cosine 28x over 2, and I just need to simplify that expression. Let's try that again. So 1/4 minus 1/2 cosine 14x, and then this is 1/2 plus 1/2 cosine 28x. If I multiply by the 4th, then I have 1/8 plus 1/8 cosine 28x. And then this portion's done, this portion's done. I just need to combine 1/4 and 1/8, which is 3/8. So 3/8 minus 1/2 cosine 14x plus 1/8 cosine 28x should be your final answer. Let's see what we can do to fill it in correctly. Okay, so there's our answer. So we're going to write the 3/8 here. So I'd do 3/8 minus 1/2 cosine of 14. The x is already there, so don't type that in. Plus 1/8 cosine, again, just write the number, 28x. That way it's not double counting that x. But that's at least how you would enter your answer, if that might be the issue. But that should be it. So let me know if you have more questions after that. Try to ask them through MyOpenMath so I can see which question you're working with. Emails works, but I kind of have to do a guess. But hope that helps.